Minjun had called 12 times. Each unanswered ring pushed him closer to losing control, not of his empire, but of himself. Now he stood outside the restaurant, watching his assistant smile at another man. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. She was never just his assistant. She was the one thing he was about to destroy everything for. Subscribe if you enjoy stories that go deeper than surface romance. Like this video so YouTube knows to show you more stories like this, and in the comments, tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Layla excused herself from the table, her hands trembling as she grabbed her purse. The man across from her barely noticed. She pushed through the restaurant doors and stepped into the cool evening air. Minjun stood 3 feet away, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his black coat. He didn't move. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice sharper than intended. "I called 12 times." His tone was flat, controlled. Too controlled. "I was busy." "I can see that." His gaze flicked past her shoulder toward the restaurant window, where her date sat obliviously scrolling through his phone. Minjun's jaw tightened. "Who is he?" "None of your business." "Everything about you is my business." The words hung between them like a challenge. Layla felt heat rise to her cheeks, anger mixing with something she refused to name. She'd worked for Minjun for 6 months. 6 months of late nights in his penthouse office, of watching him command rooms full of dangerous men with nothing but a look, of pretending she didn't notice the way his eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't watching. "I don't work weekends," she said. "You do now. Get in the car." "I'm on a date." "Not anymore." He turned and walked toward the black sedan parked at the curb. Layla stood frozen, torn between fury and the traitorous part of her that wanted to follow. She thought of the man inside, of the perfectly pleasant evening she was supposed to be having. Then she thought of Minjun's eyes, the way they'd looked at her through the window, like she'd betrayed him somehow, like she'd hurt him. She followed. The car ride was silent. Minjun stared out the window, his profile sharp and unreadable. Layla sat as far from him as the back seat allowed, her arms crossed. The driver said nothing. They never did. "There's a problem with the Singapore contract," Minjun finally said. "At 9 o'clock on a Saturday night?" "Yes." "You're lying." He turned to her then, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "I don't lie to you, Layla." "Then why did you really pull me out of that restaurant?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. They pulled up to his building, the towering glass structure that housed both his legitimate business operations and the empire he ran from the shadows. Layla knew more about Minjun's world than she should. She'd seen things, heard things, signed papers that would make most people run, but she'd never run. She'd never even considered it. They rode the elevator to the top floor. Minjun's penthouse office was all dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He poured himself a drink, then one for her without asking. She took it but didn't drink. "The contract is on my desk," he said. Layla walked over and flipped through the papers. Nothing was wrong. Everything was perfectly in order, just as she'd left it Friday afternoon. She looked up. Minjun stood by the window, his back to her, tension radiating from every line of his body. "There's no problem with this contract," she said quietly. "I know." "Then why am I here?" "Because I couldn't stand the thought of you sitting across from him for another second." The confession landed between them like a bomb. Layla set down her glass, her heart hammering. "That's not appropriate. I'm aware. I'm your assistant. I'm aware of that, too." "Then what are you doing?" He turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his expression stole her breath. "Losing my mind, apparently." Layla didn't know how to respond. She'd felt the tension building between them for months, but she'd convinced herself it was one-sided, that she was imagining the looks, the touches that lasted too long, the way he seemed to know what she needed before she did. "This can't happen," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I know. I could lose my job. You won't. People will talk." Let them. Minjun, I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea. He crossed the space between them, stopping just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. I've listed them all 1,000 times, but none of it matters when you walk into a room and everything else disappears. Layla's breath caught. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my entire life. Later that night, after an hour of excruciating, professional discussion about contracts neither of them cared about, Minjun drove her home. He always drove her home after late nights, always waited until she was safely inside before pulling away. But tonight felt different. Tonight, when she reached for the door handle, his hand caught her wrist. Don't see him again, he said. Excuse me? That man. Don't see him again. Layla pulled her hand free, anger flaring hot and bright. You don't get to tell me who I can see. I know I don't. I'm asking. Why should I? Because I'm asking. His voice dropped lower, rougher. Because I can't promise I'll be civilized about it if you don't. She should have been furious. She should have quit right there, walked out of his car and his life, and never looked back. Instead, she found herself saying, You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Layla didn't know what to say to that. She got out of the car and went inside, and she didn't look back even, though she felt his eyes on her the entire way. She leaned against her apartment door, heart racing, trying to process what had just happened. Minjun had always been professional, even when the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Tonight, he'd crossed a line, and the terrifying part was that she wanted him to. The next morning, she woke to find a package outside her door. Inside was a first edition of her favorite book, the one she'd mentioned once in passing 3 months ago. No note, no explanation, just the book and the knowledge that Minjun remembered everything she'd ever told him. She went to work Monday morning, prepared for awkwardness. Instead, Minjun was perfectly professional. He didn't mention Saturday night. He didn't mention the book. He treated her exactly as he always had, with respect, with trust, with the kind of attention that made her feel like the most important person in any room he occupied. But something had shifted. She felt it in the way his gaze lingered a fraction too long, in the way he stood just slightly too close when reviewing documents, in the way his hand brushed hers when passing her coffee, the touch so brief she might have imagined it, except for the electricity that shot through her entire body. A few days later, Minjun had a meeting with some of his business associates, the kind of associates who made Layla nervous, even though they were always polite to her. She sat in her usual chair in the corner, taking notes, trying to be invisible. One of the men, younger than the others, kept looking at her, not threatening, curious, interested. When the meeting ended and the men filed out, the young one lingered. You're new, he said in Korean, which Layla had learned enough of to understand basic conversation. I've been here 6 months, she replied in English. I would have remembered you. He smiled, and it was charming in an obvious way that did nothing for her. I'm Tae-hyun. Perhaps we could... No. Minjun's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stood in the doorway of his private office, his expression perfectly blank in that way that meant he was furious. Tae-hyun's smile faltered. I was just introducing myself, Hyung. And now you can leave. It wasn't a suggestion. Tae-hyun bowed slightly, his eyes flickering between Minjun and Layla with dawning understanding. He left quickly, the door clicking shut behind him. Minjun looked at Layla, and she saw something dark and possessive flash across his face before he locked it down. My office. Now. She followed him inside. He closed the door, then stood there with his back to it, his hands clenched at his sides. The silence stretched. He was just being friendly, Layla said. He was looking at you like he wanted to devour you. And what if he was? What business is it of yours? None. Absolutely none. Minjun ran a hand through his hair, a rare show of frustration. Which is why this is a problem. What is? This. You. The fact that I can't think straight anymore. The fact that I nearly broke his jaw for smiling at you. Layla's breath caught. Minjun. I know this is wrong. I know I'm your boss, that there's a power imbalance, that I should never have let it get this far. He looked at her with such raw vulnerability that she forgot how to breathe. But I can't seem to stop. Stop what? Wanting you, thinking about you, caring about you so much it terrifies me. The confession hung in the air between them. Layla knew she should say something professional, something that would re-establish boundaries. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "I think about you too." His eyes darkened. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides, and suddenly he was there, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his body. His hand came up, hovering near her face but not quite touching. "Tell me to stop," he said hoarsely. She couldn't. She didn't want to. When his fingers finally brushed her cheek, feather light and reverent, she leaned into the touch like she'd been starving for it. "Layla." Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. They stood like that for a long moment, frozen in the space between what they were and what they could become. Then Minjun's phone rang, shattering the moment. He stepped back, running his hand through his hair again, looking shaken. "I have a call," he said unnecessarily. Layla nodded and left his office, her legs unsteady. She went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on her face, trying to calm her racing heart. When she looked in the mirror, her eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed. She looked like a woman on the edge of something dangerous. That evening, Minjun asked her to stay late. They worked in companionable silence, the tension between them palpable but contained. Around 9, he ordered dinner, Korean food from the place she'd mentioned liking. They ate at the small table in his office, talking about work. At first, then about other things, her childhood in Morocco, his complicated relationship with his father, the dreams they'd both set aside to meet family expectations. "Do you ever regret it?" Layla asked, "taking over the family business?" Minjun was quiet for a long moment. "Every day, but regret doesn't change anything. I made my choice." "You could still change it. Walk away." "It's not that simple. Too many people depend on the structure I maintain. If I walk away, there's chaos. People get hurt. So you sacrifice yourself instead. It's not a sacrifice if you never had a choice to begin with." He met her eyes across the table. "But lately, I've been thinking about what it would be like to have a choice, to want something just for myself, not because it's expected or necessary." "What do you want?" Layla asked softly. The look he gave her was answer enough. By the end of the week, everything had changed, and nothing had changed. Minjun hadn't kissed her, hadn't crossed that final line, but the air between them crackled with tension so thick it was suffocating. Every glance felt like a touch. Every accidental brush of hands felt like fire. Layla tried to focus on work. Minjun gave her more responsibility, trusted her with sensitive information, treated her like an equal in meetings with men who terrified most people. She should have felt empowered. Instead, she felt like she was walking a tightrope, one wrong step away from falling into something that would consume her entirely. Later that evening, Minjun asked her to accompany him to a business dinner. It wasn't unusual. She often attended such events, taking notes and handling logistics. But when she arrived at his penthouse to ride with him, she found him in a full tuxedo, looking so devastatingly handsome that she forgot how to breathe. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes traveling over the simple black dress she'd chosen. "Thank you." Her voice came out breathier than intended. The dinner was at an exclusive restaurant where world leaders and criminals dined side by side, and no one asked questions. Minjun's hand rested on the small of her back as he guided her through the crowd, the touch burning through the thin fabric of her dress. He introduced her to everyone as his assistant, but the way he looked at her told a different story. They sat across from a Russian businessman and his wife. The conversation was in English and Korean and Russian, a fluid mix that Layla followed as best she could. The Russian's wife was kind, asking Layla about her background, her family in Morocco, her dreams. Minjun listened to every word, filing away information like he always did. "Your boss is very protective of you," the woman observed with a knowing smile. Layla glanced at Min Jun, who was watching her with an intensity that made her skin heat. He's very protective of all his employees. No, the woman said gently. He's very protective of you specifically. My husband used to look at me the same way. Still does, actually. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. That's not a boss looking at an employee. That's a man who would burn the world down for the woman he loves. The words stayed with Layla long after dinner ended. As they drove back to her apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about them. Min Jun was quiet, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel. What did she say to you? He asked finally. Nothing important. Layla, she sighed. She said you look at me like a man in love. The car swerved slightly before Min Jun corrected. And what did you say? Nothing, because I didn't know what to say. He pulled over suddenly, parking on a side street. They sat in silence, the engine idling, both of them staring straight ahead. She's right, Min Jun said quietly. I am in love with you. I've been in love with you for months. Layla's heart stopped. Min Jun. I know the timing is terrible. I know this complicates everything. But I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of watching you and wanting you and knowing I have no right to either. You have a right to your feelings. Do I? When I hold power over your job, your livelihood, when saying no to me could cost you everything? Is that what you think? That I'm afraid to say no to you? He finally looked at her and the pain in his eyes broke her heart. Aren't you? No. She turned in her seat to face him fully. I'm afraid to say yes. I'm afraid of falling for you and losing myself. I'm afraid of what happens when this ends, because relationships like ours always end. The powerful man moves on, and the woman is left picking up the pieces. I would never... You don't know that. You can't know that. Her voice cracked. My mother worked for a wealthy man once. He made her promises. He made her believe she was special. Then his family arranged a marriage, and she was discarded like she'd never mattered at all. I was 8 years old when I watched her try to put her life back together. Understanding dawned on Min Jun's face. You think I'll do the same thing. I think you're a good man who believes he won't, but you're also a man with obligations, expectations, a world that won't accept someone like me. Someone like you? What does that mean? I'm black. I'm foreign. I'm your employee. I'm from a world so far removed from yours that we might as well be from different planets. Min Jun reached over and took her hand, his grip firm. You're intelligent. You're strong. You see me. Not the reputation, not the power, not the fear. You see me. And yes, you're beautiful, but that's the least interesting thing about you. You challenge me. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me believe I could be something other than what my father made me. Tears burned Layla's eyes. Pretty words won't change reality. Then let me change reality. Give me a chance to prove I'm not him, that I'm not your mother's employer or any man who's ever made promises he didn't keep. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to let me earn your trust. And if you fail, then I fail. But I'd rather try and fail than never try at all. The next morning, Min Jun was waiting outside Layla's apartment building when she left for work. Not his driver, him. Leaning against his car, 2 cups of coffee in hand, looking tired and troubled, and somehow more real than she'd ever seen him. You didn't have to pick me up, she said. I wanted to. He handed her a coffee, made exactly how she liked it. We need to talk about yesterday, about what I said. They drove in silence to a park overlooking the river. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Min Jun parked, but didn't get out. Neither did she. I thought about what you said last night, he began. About your mother. About power dynamics and expectations. You're right, about all of it. Layla's stomach sank. So this conversation is you taking it back. No, this conversation is me acknowledging that you have every reason not to trust me, that I'm asking you to take a leap of faith that could destroy you if I'm wrong. He turned to face her. I can't promise the world won't judge us. I can't promise my family will accept you. I can't even promise this will work out, but I can promise that I will fight for you every single day. I can promise that you will never be an afterthought or a secret or something I'm ashamed of. Min-jun, let me finish. His voice was rough with emotion. I know you're scared. I'm terrified too. I've never felt like this about anyone. I don't know how to be vulnerable or how to love someone without trying to control everything. But I want to learn. I want to try. With you. Layla felt tears slide down her cheeks. What if we ruin everything? What if we try this and it destroys our working relationship and we can't even be in the same room anymore? Then I'll hire you the best recommendation money can buy and help you find a position that makes you even more successful than you are now. You won't lose anything by trying with me, Layla. I'll make sure of it. You can't guarantee that. No, but I can promise to try my best. She looked at him, this powerful man who held the fate of so many in his hands and saw only vulnerability, saw only hope and fear and desperate longing. She thought about her mother's tears, about the warnings she'd grown up hearing, but she also thought about the way Min-jun looked at her, the way he listened when she spoke, the way he'd remembered her favorite book after one casual mention. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay, I'll try. I'll give this a chance. But Min-jun, if you hurt me, if I hurt you, I'll deserve whatever comes next. He reached over and wiped away her tears with his thumb. Thank you for trusting me, for taking this chance. They sat there as the sun rose higher, neither of them in any hurry to return to the real world. When they finally did go to work, everything felt different, better, like a weight had been lifted. But Min-jun kept things professional at the office. No lingering touches, no heated looks when others were watching. He was protecting her reputation, she realized, making sure no one could claim she'd slept her way into her position or that he was taking advantage of his power. Their first real date was that weekend. Min-jun picked her up at 7, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater that made him look younger, more approachable. He took her to a small Moroccan restaurant she'd mentioned loving, tucked away in a neighborhood most people didn't know existed. How did you find this place? She asked as they settled into a private corner table. I asked around, called in some favors. The owner was hesitant to open just for us, but I convinced him. You rented out the entire restaurant? I wanted privacy. I wanted you to be comfortable. The gesture touched her more than any expensive gift could have. They ate tagine and couscous, and Layla told him stories about growing up in Casablanca, about her grandmother who'd raised her after her mother's heartbreak, about the dreams she'd had of seeing the world. What brought you to Korea? Min-jun asked. A scholarship, and the desire to escape, honestly. Morocco held too many painful memories for my mother. She never recovered from what that man did to her. I wanted to build a life somewhere new, somewhere I could define myself. And have you? Defined yourself? Layla considered. I thought I had. Then I met you, and suddenly I don't know who I am anymore. You're exactly who you've always been. I just make you see different possibilities. After dinner, they walked along the river. Min-jun took her hand, the gesture simple but monumental. No one knew them here. They were just two people on a date, enjoying the evening air. Tell me about your family, Layla said. Your real family, not the business side. Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. My mother died when I was 12. She was the only soft thing in my father's life, the only person who made him human. After she was gone, he became harder, colder. He raised me to take over, to be strong, to never show weakness. That sounds lonely. It was. I had everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. Friends were really allies. Women were transactions. Love was weakness. He squeezed her hand. Until you. I'm not special, Min-jun. You are to me. They stood on a bridge overlooking the water, the city lights reflecting off the surface. Min-jun turned to her, his hand coming up to cup her face. I'm going to kiss you now, he said softly. If you don't want me to, tell me. Layla couldn't speak, could barely breathe. When his lips met hers, soft and questioning, the world disappeared. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if he was afraid she might shatter. Then it deepened, became something more urgent. Layla's hands fisted in his sweater, pulling him closer, and Minjun made a sound deep in his throat that sent shivers down her spine. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minjun rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that for 6 months. Was it worth the wait? It was worth everything. He drove her home, and this time, when she invited him up, he accepted. They sat on her small couch, talking until the early hours of the morning, about everything and nothing, about fears and dreams and the impossibility of what they were attempting. I don't know how to do this, Minjun admitted. I don't know how to be someone's boyfriend. I don't know the rules. There are no rules. We make this up as we go. What if I mess it up? Then we'll figure it out together. Layla took his hand. I'm scared too, Minjun, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, and they stayed like that until exhaustion claimed them both. When Layla woke hours later, she was tucked into her bed, fully clothed, with a blanket pulled over her. Minjun sat in the chair by the window, watching her with soft eyes. You stayed, she said, her voice rough with sleep. I didn't want to leave. I hope that's okay. It's more than okay. He came to sit on the edge of the bed, brushing hair from her face. I should go. Let you sleep properly. Stay a little longer. So he did. He lay down beside her, and she curled into his side, and they slept the peaceful sleep of people who'd finally stopped fighting what they felt. By the end of the week, their relationship was an open secret. Minjun's inner circle knew. His driver knew. His security team knew. But he didn't care. He introduced Layla as his girlfriend at a business meeting, his hand possessively on her lower back, daring anyone to say something. No one did, at least not to their faces. But Layla could feel the judgment, could see it in the way some people looked at her, assessing her worth, wondering what she'd done to catch Minjun's attention. She tried not to let it bother her, but it was hard. Ignore them, Minjun told her one evening when she was particularly quiet. They're not important. They're your business associates. Business can be replaced. You can't. Later that evening, they attended a gallery opening. Minjun was on edge, constantly scanning the crowd, his body tense. Layla squeezed his hand. Relax, she murmured. Everything's fine. Something feels off. His instincts were right. Halfway through the evening, Layla excused herself to the restroom. When she came out, the woman from before, Minjun's father's choice, was waiting. You're making a mistake, the woman said coldly in perfect English. Minjun needs a wife from his world, someone who understands the business, someone useful. And you think that's you? I know it is. You're a distraction, a phase. He'll realize it eventually. Men like him always do. The woman's smile was razor sharp. You're pretty enough, I'll give you that. But pretty doesn't last. Pretty doesn't build empires or secure alliances. Layla felt her confidence waver but held her ground. That's his decision to make, not yours. Is it? Or will his sense of duty eventually win out? His father has already made his wishes clear. Minjun can play at rebellion now, but when it comes down to it, he'll choose his legacy over a temporary infatuation. The words hit harder than they should have. Layla thought of her mother, of similar promises made and broken. When she returned to Minjun, he took one look at her face and knew something had happened. What did she say to you? Nothing important. Layla. His voice was sharp. What did she say? She said, I'm a phase, that you'll choose duty over me eventually, that men like you always do. Minjun's expression went dark. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Speaking in rapid Korean, his voice cold and commanding. When he hung up, he turned to her. We're leaving. What did you do? Ended the arrangement. Told my father I'm done playing by his rules. Told him that if he can't accept you, he won't see me either. Minjun, you can't. I already did. You're more important than any alliance, more important than anything. But as they left the gallery, Layla couldn't shake the woman's words. What if she was right? What if Minjun's feelings were real now but wouldn't last? What if duty and obligation eventually won out? The next morning, the consequences arrived. Minjun's father called an emergency meeting at the family compound. Minjun brought Layla with him, refusing to hide her away. The compound was impressive, all traditional architecture and beautiful gardens, but the atmosphere inside was ice cold. Minjun's father was an older man who looked like a harder, crueler version of his son. He barely glanced at Layla before launching into a tirade in Korean. Minjun responded calmly, his hand never leaving hers. The argument escalated, voices rising, but Minjun remained steady. Finally, Minjun's father switched to English. This is your final warning. End this foolishness with the girl, or I cut you off. Financially, politically, socially, you'll have nothing. Then I'll have nothing, Minjun said. But I'll have her, and that's enough. You're a fool. Perhaps. But I'm a fool who knows what matters. His father's face twisted with rage. You think love is enough? Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't maintain power. Love doesn't keep you safe from enemies. No, Minjun agreed. But love makes everything else worthwhile. Without it, what's the point of any of this? They left with Minjun's father's curses ringing in their ears. In the car, Layla turned to him. What just happened? My father cut me off financially, politically, socially. As far as he's concerned, I no longer exist. Her heart sank. Because of me. Because I chose you, and I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. Minjun, I can't let you sacrifice everything for... He silenced her with a kiss, deep and consuming and full of promise. You're not everything. You're the only thing that matters. My father's money, his connections, his approval, I never wanted any of it. I only accepted it because I thought I had no choice. But you've shown me I do have a choice, and I choose you. Over the next few days, the reality of Minjun's decision became clear. His father wasn't just cutting him off, he was actively working against him. Business deals fell through. Allies withdrew support. Invitations to important events dried up. But Minjun didn't seem bothered. If anything, he seemed lighter. I've been wanting to break free for years, he told Layla one evening as they cooked dinner in her apartment. I just didn't have a good enough reason before. I feel guilty. Don't. You gave me the courage to choose. My own path. That's a gift, not a burden. But the threats escalated. Someone broke into Layla's apartment while she was at work. Nothing was taken, but the message was clear. You're not safe. Minjun moved her into his penthouse that night, non-negotiable. Layla wanted to protest, wanted to maintain some independence, but she was also terrified. How long will this last? She asked, as they lay in his enormous bed that first night. As long as it takes for my father to accept that I'm not backing down. And if he never accepts it, then we'll deal with that too, together. Layla turned to face him in the darkness. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. You're not the reason. My father's pride is the reason. His inability to accept that I might want something different is the reason. Minjun pulled her closer. Besides, I haven't lost everything. I still have my core business, the parts I built myself. I still have people loyal to me, not just to my father's name. And I have you. That's more than enough. The next morning, Minjun was gone when Layla woke. He'd left a note saying he had an early meeting, but something felt wrong. She called him. No answer. She called his driver. No answer. Panic rising, she called his head of security. Where is he? With his father, meeting at the old warehouse district. He said not to worry you. Layla's blood ran cold. The warehouse district was where Minjun's father conducted his most dangerous business. She got dressed and called a car, ignoring every instinct that told her to stay put. She arrived to find the warehouse surrounded by cars she didn't recognize. Inside, she could hear raised voices. She pushed through the door and froze. Min Jun stood in the center of an empty space, surrounded by his father's men. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. His jacket was torn, but he was standing tall, defiant, unbroken. "Layla, no." His voice cracked when he saw her. "You need to leave. Now. Not without you." Min Jun's father stepped forward, looking between them with something that might have been grudging respect. "So this is the girl worth losing everything for." "Yes," Min Jun said firmly. "She's brave. I'll give her that. Stupid, but brave." The old man circled Layla like a predator sizing up prey. "You understand what you're asking my son to give up? His position, his power, his future." "I'm not asking him to give up anything," Layla said, her voice steadier than she felt. "He's making his own choices." "Is he? Or are you manipulating him with promises and pretty words?" "I love him. That's not manipulation." "Love." The word was said with such contempt that Layla flinched. Love is a fantasy, a weakness. In our world, it's the fastest way to die. "Then maybe your world needs to change," Layla shot back. "Maybe teaching your children that love is weakness is why you're standing here trying to beat sense into your son instead of celebrating his happiness." The silence that followed was deafening. Min Jun's father stared at her, and for a moment Layla thought she'd gone too far. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. "You have fire. I see why he likes you." He turned to Min Jun. "You have a choice, son. Her or your position in this family, your empire or this girl. Choose." "I choose her. I'll always choose her." "Then you're a fool, and fools don't survive long in our world." What happened next was chaos. Min Jun's father signaled his men to move forward. Min Jun pushed Layla behind him, his body a shield. She screamed, tried to help, but he held her back with one arm, then gunshots. Not from Min Jun's father's men, from outside. The warehouse doors burst open, and Min Jun's own security team flooded in, weapons drawn. His head of security had followed Layla, had called for backup. In the confusion, Min Jun grabbed Layla and got her out. They ended up at a safe house outside the city, a small cabin in the mountains that felt worlds away from the violence they'd just escaped. Min Jun was bleeding, bruised, but alive. Layla cleaned his wounds with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. "You could have been killed," she whispered. "I won't let anyone hurt you, not my father, not anyone." "This is my fault." "No." He caught her hands, forced her to look at him. "This is my father's fault for being a monster. You are the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't regret a single moment." "Even now? Even after losing everything?" "I haven't lost everything. I still have you. That's all that matters." They stayed in the cabin for 3 days, hiding from the world, existing only for each other. Min Jun made calls, moved pieces on a chessboard Layla couldn't fully see. She trusted him to handle it. On the second night, as they sat by the fireplace, Min Jun pulled her close. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "Before this all happened, before my father's ultimatum, I had a plan. I've been building something separate from the family. Business. Legitimate companies. Clean money. A foundation that doesn't depend on my father's empire. I was waiting for the right moment to break away completely." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to feel like you were the catalyst. I wanted you to know I was choosing this path for me, not just for you. But I am the catalyst. You're the reason I had the courage to do it now instead of waiting another 5 years, but the desire to break free was always there." Layla pressed her forehead against his. "What happens now?" "Now I finish what I started. I take control of my own companies. I cut all ties with my father's organization. I build something better." "That sounds dangerous." "It is. My father won't let go easily. There will be challenges, threats, possibly more violence, which is why I need to ask you something." He pulled back, reaching into his pocket. When he opened his hand, Layla saw a ring. Simple, elegant, beautiful. "Marry me," Min Jun said. "Not because of duty or alliance or anything else. Marry me because I love you, because I want to spend every day for the rest of my life choosing you, because I want to build this new life with you by my side. Layla's breath caught. Your father? We'll learn to live with it or not. I don't care anymore. I only care about you. Yes. The word came out choked with emotion. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her with such tenderness that she forgot about everything else. That night, they made love for the first time, slow and gentle and earth-shattering all at once. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Minjun traced patterns on her skin. I love you, he whispered. I will love you for the rest of my life. I love you too, always. They returned to the city on the 4th morning. Minjun had been busy during their time away. He'd consolidated power, called in favors from people loyal to him rather than his father, made alliances that couldn't be broken by one man's anger. When they walked into his office building, Layla noticed the difference immediately. People looked at Minjun with something beyond fear now, respect, loyalty. What did you do? She asked. Staged a coup of sorts. My father is retired as of this morning. I run everything now. The parts worth running anyway. The rest, the dangerous parts, I've handed over to people who want them. I'm out. Just like that? It wasn't just like anything. But yes, the empire is mine now. And I'm reshaping it into something better. Something you can be proud to be part of. Over the next few weeks, Minjun proved he meant what he said. He legitimized operations, cut ties with the most dangerous elements of his father's empire, invested in legitimate businesses. It wasn't easy. He made enemies. Some of his father's old allies tried to undermine him. There were threats, close calls, moments when Layla wondered if they'd made a terrible mistake. But through it all, Minjun never wavered. He protected her, included her, made her feel like an equal partner in building this new life. She sat in on meetings, offered perspectives he hadn't considered, pushed him to be better, and he listened like she was the smartest person he'd ever met. Because to him, she was. 2 months after their engagement, Minjun threw a party to announce it formally. The guest list read like a who's who of the Korean underworld and business elite. Layla was terrified, wearing a dress that cost more than her old monthly salary, feeling like an imposter. You belong here, Minjun told her, his hands on her shoulders. More than half these people ever will. You're genuine. You're kind. You earned your place through merit, not fear. When he introduced her as his fiancée, there was silence. Then slowly, applause. Not everyone was happy. Layla could see the judgment in some eyes, the calculation in others. But most people seemed genuinely pleased, or at least willing to pretend. Minjun's father was not in attendance. He'd sent a message, though, delivered by an intermediary. Tell my son he's dead to me. Minjun had simply shrugged. I've been dead to him since my mother died. Now it's just official. But the next morning, something changed. Minjun's father showed up at the penthouse, alone, looking older and somehow smaller. Layla watched from the kitchen as father and son faced each other. I was wrong, the old man said in Korean, which Layla could now understand fairly well. About what? About you, about her, about what matters. He switched to English, probably for Layla's benefit. I built this empire on fear and blood. I told myself it was for you, for your future, but really it was for me, my pride, my ego. Why are you here, Father? To apologize. To tell you I see now what I couldn't before. That woman, Layla, she has courage I've rarely seen. She stood up to me when trained soldiers wouldn't. She loves you enough to walk into danger for you. He paused. She reminds me of your mother. Minjun's expression softened slightly. Mother was nothing like you wanted her to be. No, she was better. She made me better for a while. When she died, I lost my way. The old man looked at Layla. I was wrong to threaten you, wrong to try to separate you. My son made the right choice. Layla stepped forward. What changed your mind? I watched what he's built in these past months. He's done more good, made more legitimate profit, earned more genuine respect than I managed in 40 years. And he did it while protecting you, loving you, never compromising on what matters. He turned back to Min-jun. You're twice the man I ever was. The reconciliation wasn't instant or complete. There was still too much hurt, too much history. But it was a beginning. Min-jun's father began to withdraw from the business entirely, letting Min-jun transform it into something legitimate. He even offered financial support, which Min-jun declined. I need to build this myself, he told his father, without your money or your name. I need to prove I can. You already have, son, but I understand. 3 months later, Min-jun and Layla were married in a small ceremony in Morocco, surrounded by Layla's family and Min-jun's inner circle. Her mother cried, holding Layla's face and whispering in Arabic, "He is not that man. This one will keep his promises." Her sisters fussed over every detail, making sure everything was perfect. Her grandmother, who'd raised her, pulled Min-jun aside before the ceremony. "You understand what you're promising?" she asked in French, which Min-jun had learned specifically to speak with Layla's family. "I do." "Our Layla. She has a tender heart under all that strength. If you break it, you answer to me." Min-jun smiled. "I welcome that accountability." He stood at the altar in traditional Moroccan clothing, looking both foreign and somehow perfectly right. When Layla appeared in her wedding dress, his eyes filled with tears. The ceremony was a blend of cultures, Korean and Moroccan traditions woven together into something unique. When they exchanged vows, Min-jun spoke in Arabic, stumbling over some pronunciations but trying so hard that Layla's family was charmed. "I promise to choose you," he said in Korean, then repeated in Arabic, then English. "Every single day, in every way that matters. You are my home, Layla. You are my heart. And I will spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you." Layla's vows were simpler. "I promise to stand beside you, not behind you, to challenge you when you need it and support you always, to build this life with you, whatever it brings. I love you, Min-jun, completely and forever." They honeymooned in a private villa in Bali, 2 weeks of nothing but each other. Min-jun was different there, lighter. The weight of his empire felt distant. They talked about the future, about children, about building something meaningful together. "I want to start a foundation," Layla told him one evening as they watched the sunset. "For women like my mother, women who've been used and discarded by powerful men. I want to help them rebuild their lives. Then we'll do it, whatever you need. It might be controversial. Powerful men don't like being exposed. Let them be uncomfortable. It's about time." When they returned to Korea, Layla threw herself into the foundation. Min-jun supported her fully, providing funding and connections. The foundation grew quickly, helping dozens of women find jobs, housing, and legal support. Layla's story, though she kept some details private, inspired others to come forward. There was backlash, of course. Some people accused her of hypocrisy, of marrying a powerful man while claiming to help women escape them. But Layla stood firm. "The difference," she said in an interview, "is choice. I chose Min-jun freely as an equal partner. The women we help never had that choice. They were coerced, manipulated, threatened. I want to give them what I had, the power to say yes or no without fear." Min-jun was beside her for that interview, his hand in hers, his support unwavering. 6 months into their marriage, Layla discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified to tell Min-jun, afraid of bringing a child into their complicated world. But when she finally did, his reaction was everything. He fell to his knees, his hands on her still flat stomach, tears streaming down his face. "We made this," he whispered. "We made life together. Are you happy?" Happy doesn't even begin to cover it. Terrified, too, but mostly just grateful. He became impossibly protective after that. Layla had to set firm boundaries, or he would have wrapped her in bubble wrap and kept her locked in the penthouse. They compromised. More security, yes, but also freedom, trust, the space to breathe and work and be herself. Their daughter was born on a spring morning, tiny and perfect and screaming with healthy lungs. Minjun held her like she was made of glass, wonder and terror warring on his face. "She has your eyes," Layla said, exhausted but happy, "and your strength. I can already tell." They named her Amina, after Layla's grandmother. When Minjun's father came to visit, he held his granddaughter with surprising gentleness. The old man had changed, softened by time and his son's example. He even apologized to Layla properly, without excuses or justifications. "I was wrong about everything," he told her. "You're good for my son. Good for this family. I'm grateful you didn't give up on him." "I'm grateful he didn't give up on me," Layla replied. Life wasn't perfect. Minjun still had enemies. There were still threats, still dangers lurking in the shadows, but they faced them together, a united front. Minjun had built something new, something better, and Layla stood beside him as an equal partner. Their foundation continued to grow. Layla hired staff, opened offices in other cities, expanded their mission. She gave speeches, wrote articles, became a voice for women who'd been silenced. Minjun supported her every step, proud of what she was building. They had 2 more children, a son named Karim and another daughter named Yasmin. Minjun was a devoted father, patient and playful in ways that surprised everyone who knew his reputation. He taught their children strength and kindness in equal measure, and he loved them with the same intensity he loved Layla. Years passed. The world changed, but some things remained constant. Every morning, Minjun still made Layla coffee exactly how she liked it. Every night, he still held her like she was the most precious thing in his world, because to him, she was. On their 5th anniversary, they returned to Morocco. Their children ran through the same streets Layla had played in as a child. Minjun watched her laugh with her family, surrounded by the people who had shaped her, and felt gratitude so profound it brought tears to his eyes. "What are you thinking?" Layla asked, catching him watching. "That I almost lost all of this. That night in the restaurant, if I'd let you stay, if I'd been too coward to fight for you, none of this would exist. But you didn't. You fought for us. I'll always fight for us. For you. For our family." They stayed in Morocco for a month, soaking up family and sunshine and the peace they'd fought so hard to build. When they returned home, it was to an empire transformed. Minjun's businesses were clean, successful, built on merit and innovation rather than fear. Their children grew. Amina became passionate about medicine, wanting to help people like her mother did. Karim discovered a love for technology, spending hours building and coding. Yasmin showed early talent for art, covering every surface with colorful drawings. On their 10th anniversary, Minjun took Layla back to that restaurant, the same one where it had all started. They sat at a different table this time, but the memories were just as powerful. 10 years, Layla said, shaking her head. "It feels like both forever and no time at all. Do you regret it? Everything we went through?" "Not for a second. It was hard, yes. Scary sometimes. But it brought us here. To this life. To our family." Minjun reached across the table to take her hand. "I love you more now than I did then. I didn't think that was possible. But it's true. Every day with you makes me love you more." "You're getting sentimental in your old age. I'm 36, not ancient. Old enough to be romantic without being embarrassed about it." They laughed together, the sound easy and familiar. After dinner, they walked to the spot where Minjun had stood that night, watching her through the window. Layla leaned into his side, his arm around her waist. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For being impossible to ignore. For choosing me. For loving me so much that the rest of the world faded away. For building this life with me." Minjun turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face. "Thank you for taking a chance on me, for seeing past my reputation to who I really was, for believing I could be better." He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of 10 years of love. Around them, the city continued its endless rhythm, but in this moment, they were just two people who had found each other against all odds. The foundation continued to grow. By their 15th anniversary, they'd helped thousands of women rebuild their lives. Layla received awards, recognition, speaking invitations from around the world. Minjun stood beside her at every event, proud and supportive, never trying to take credit for her success. Their children became adults. Amina went to medical school following her dream of becoming a doctor. Kareem started his own tech company, with Minjun's guidance but not his money. The young man wanted to build something himself, just like his father had. Yasmin got into a prestigious art program, her talent recognized internationally. On their 20th anniversary, Minjun and Layla took a trip alone, just the two of them, to a beach resort in Thailand. They walked along the shore at sunset, hand in hand, reflecting on the life they'd built. "I used to dream of freedom," Minjun said, "of escape. But I thought it was impossible, that I was trapped by obligation and family and circumstances. What changed? You. You showed me that freedom isn't about running away. It's about choosing what matters and having the courage to fight for it." Layla stopped, turning to face him. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, but all she could see was him. This man who had loved her so completely, so devastatingly that everything else had fallen away. "I choose you," she said. "I've chosen you every day for 20 years, and I'll keep choosing you for whatever time we have left. Forever," Minjun promised. "I'll love you forever, Layla, in this life and whatever comes after." They kissed as the sun set, two people who had taken an impossible chance and turned it into a lifetime. The path hadn't been easy. There had been obstacles, dangers, moments when they'd almost lost everything, but they'd held on to each other, fought for each other, chosen each other over and over again. And in the end, that's what mattered. Not the empire Minjun had built or the foundation Layla had created. Not the children they'd raised or the legacy they'd leave. What mattered was the love they'd found in that restaurant window 20 years ago. The love that had survived every test, every challenge, every impossibility thrown their way. They returned home to find their children had prepared a surprise party. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone they'd touched over the years gathered to celebrate. Minjun's father was there, frailer now, but with clear eyes and a genuine smile. Layla's mother was there, happy and proud. Her past heartbreak finally healed. As they stood, together, surrounded by love and laughter, Layla leaned into Minjun.